Looky what we got in the shop today. Holy Mother Teresa's dupa. Look at this. This is a all original 1978 BC Rich Bitch bass. I know this bass personally. This is my good friend Steve Mattis's bass. He bought this the day after the blizzard of 93, and he's only played it a handful of times. This thing generally sat in the case since 1993, and it is phenomenal. The neck is absolutely perfectly flat. There is no strings are dead, but there is no buzz on this. Every fret is nice. There's like very little fret wear. Look at this. These frets are nice and high, and they're big. This thing has never been refretted. I don't think it's even had a fret dressing level. It is absolutely perfect. Original DiMarzio pickups. What it's in for today is I'm going to clean it up, and we're going to make sure all that satellite launcher electronics work. And I got to figure out what all this stuff does. So I'm going to have to look up a video. Hopefully I can find something on YouTube that'll tell me, explaining what all this stuff does. Because this thing not only has coil taps and phase switches and pickup selectors and volumes and tones, and what does all this stuff do? And then there's a 6-way varitone besides. So, like, we need to make sure all this stuff works. Obviously, it's not strung up for 8-string right now. It's only strung up for 4-string. But this is going to Pristine Auctions. My boss, Chris Ratchford, is picking this up today. He's bringing over some guitars and basses for me to work on. But he's picking this up today, and my 88 Westone Corsair, which will be going for auction. This is obviously going for a hell of a lot more money than my Westone. These things are worth gobs. I will be very surprised if he does not see $10K out of this guitar. This thing is stupid. And I'm going to pause you here for a second. We're in my flyover here. And we're going to put you up in the holder. And I'm going to do it lengthwise so we can see the whole bass while I'm working on it. Or maybe I'll just do the body, because we're mainly going to be looking at this. We need to plug this in and run this through an amplifier and check with the pickups and see what all this stuff does. And then we're going to get in the back and we're going to spray deoxit in all these pots and all these switches and just make sure everything works so it can go to auction and get sold. So let's pause. Look at this. Maple neck through. It is a true neck through body. Quarter sawn maple with koa wings. Look at this. I know it's not right to say koa anymore. You got to say black limba. Yeah, whatever. It's koa. So it is maple and koa. Leo Kwan, badass bridge. Look at that badass. I actually have documentation on this guitar. Neil Moser, the big man behind BC Rich, says he remembers working on this very bass in Ensenada in the old BC Rich factory in California. He remembers installing this bridge because that's one of the first ones that got the Leo Kwan badass. And he said the neck angle on this one was much shallower than the earlier ones. You could see it's not a huge neck angle. And I have the documentation, and when I make the video for this base, I will include that documentation. You'll be able to see it, but we'll probably do it here before we start working. And so let me pause you guys, and then I'll get you up in the big holder on the wall, and we will. There's where the strings come through for the H string. And we will get to work on this bass. First thing we're going to do is tune it up. And the next thing we're going to do is go through all the electronics. So I'm going to have to look all that up. So let me pause you guys. And then when we come back, we will be working with the bitch. Dude, how more metal can you get? Wow. Be right back. Okay, guys, I just opened the back up of the BC Richard. It's all full of different foams. All got all kinds of circuit boards in here. And I will document that the original owner had put a diagram for where the batteries, what batteries control what. And there was just a small chip. I will document that for Chris. There's a small chip taken out of the very end of the control cavity cover. I did find one non-original part, and that is this extra strap button. But that is the only non-original part. This was stored with no batteries in it. Thank God. Because this thing says from 1993. All the batteries would have been corroded. It would have destroyed all these fancy electronics. All these electronics seem to be working. So I've got a couple batteries. I had two, thank God, because I wouldn't be able to finish this bass today if I didn't. And I'm going to take these out very gently because I need to get to the pots. This foam is just disintegrating in my fingers. It is so old. But I need to spray deoxit down in these pots. So that's what we're doing. And my God, this big, the figure. I'm just looking at the figure on the side of this Koa on the wing, and it is just, this thing is flawless, and it is absolutely amazing. But deoxit will help lubricate the pots. I need to find the other pots. I know there's a whole bunch of them in here. Here they are. Just a little deoxit will help everything out. Let's put some of this very fragile foam back. And let's power it up. There's one battery. There's two batteries. We'll set the foam for underneath the batteries, because there's foam got to go underneath. All right, we don't need to be pressing that wire down. This is very fragile and very delicate. So now we will replace the control cavity cover, and I will reiterate my screw tip. When you're putting in your screws, especially on a vintage instrument like this, you want to go backwards first until you hear that little click. And then you know the screw is seated in the threads that are already there. And you can screw it down. And you will not strip those delicate threads out. And you don't want to tighten everything way down until you are absolutely sure everything's lined up. But there you go. A little click, and then you can screw down. Just go backwards until you feel that thread seat and you hear a little click. These are really tiny screws, so you don't hear a lot. But you will feel it. You will feel it. Just turn it backwards. That little click. And that means it's seated. And you can go right down. And you're not stripping delicate threads. And these are very tiny screws, as you can see. There you go. Very tiny. Very tiny. So you do not, these are not standard size pickguard screws like you would see in a Stratocaster or a Telecaster. There you go. Feel that click and go down. And that way you're not stripping out delicate threads. That's the way you got to work with a vintage instrument. I'm leaving this hole for last because it does have a chip out on it. And I imagine that it's going to have a scratch or a crack rather in that hole area. So I'm not going to, I'm just going to put the screw down and not really tighten that one down because I do not want to damage this instrument. So, but we've investigated the electronics. Everything looks okay. It's definitely vintage. It's got vintage foam in it. We sprayed some deoxit in the electronics, and we're going to plug it in. And now that we're powered up, because when I plugged it in before, it really wasn't making a lot of signal. And I was wondering what was going on. Now, this is the last screw with the broken chip. So I am not going to tighten this one down a great deal. We're just going to basically get it. And we got to go a little further because the foam is under there and it's pressing up. There we go. The other ones we'll just give it a little tug. Make sure they're tight. There we go. Now we will plug this in. We've already tuned it up. And it would be nice if the neck rest didn't stick to the base. We're probably going to clean up and polish this base, and I want to polish these frets. They're kind of green from sitting. But I don't know. Maybe I'll leave it. Let's plug this in, see what she does. It is a gorgeous piece of equipment. I am very honored that Steve had asked me to. No, let me change that. That seems to be that seems to be control for this switch. This is a main preamp. This is what they call a low frequency generator. It's labeled LFG in the back cover. I think this is your master tone. Make sure everything's working here. Yep, everything's working fine. It's just I don't know what all this stuff does. So let me go and figure out what's going on, and then we'll give you a run through and tell you what everything does, and then we will give this bass a cleanup. We'll get the old Ernie ball polish on it and get it going. So stay tuned. Okay, guys, this is best I can figure out because I have been Googling and YouTubing and searching like you would not believe, and I cannot find the exact. I found some really wild satellite launcher bass systems, but nothing exactly matching this. So I had to go through this myself with the amp and just see what's going on. Best I can figure out, this is obviously your master volume and your three-way to select your pickups. Okay. This is your preamp on and off. This is a low frequency generator on and off. And this will absolutely bing your bass through your face. This is a treble bleed circuit. It kind of makes everything a little less harsh. And when you're really boosted on the preamp, this is your bass, middle, and treble preamp controls. When you have this maxed out, it is a distorted beast. It really needs to be down there where that gold knob is. This is your master bass, and if you have this maxed out, it is also big and distorted. So it needs to be back here where the gold dot is. This treble, I feel, needs to be cranked. Varitone needs to be back here where this gold knob is, but it doesn't need to be. It's just different tones. This is your 6-way Varitone, and it gives you 6 different tonal varieties. Just really scoops the mids out different. It's just different capacitors on a switch. This is your master tone control. When the bass is in normal mode without the preamp on, this is really all your tone, and you want it cranked. But when your preamp is on, you want this to be backed off about that far. These are phase switching for your pickups. These will make some nasal tones and unnasal tones. When they're up, they're nasally. When they're down, they're straight. So that's what we're looking at. We've got 2 different preamps in this thing. We've got a master preamp here, which is your 3 controls here. And that really boosts thing up. But when this is turned on, this LFG, low frequency generator, just boosts nothing but bottom end. And it really makes things distorted and big. So this is a wild. This is what the 70s were. The 70s were about making things as weird as possible. And this is one of the wildest ones you'll ever see. So I am so glad I got to document this. I do have the other strings for it. All I'm gonna do is polish this up, get the dust off of it. I am not going to polish these frets. I'm gonna leave them as green as possible because it's been a case queen since '93, and I think it needs to reflect that. Unless Chris wants me to polish them up, but right now I'm gonna leave them go because this is as original as it gets. I mean, these strings are dead because they've been on there since 1993. And thank God they took that Steve had the presence of mind to take the batteries out because this is absolutely freaking amazing. And if he didn't take the batteries out, they would have corroded over time and they would have ruined this bass. We would have take all this out and redo everything, and you would have never in a million years been able to replicate this originality. And this is just even the foam. Like I said, you saw the foam crumbling in my fingers. This is just amazing. I did adjust the action a little bit, just because the neck doesn't have a back bow, but it is dead flat, and the action was so low that they were fretting out a little bit, but now we're good. We're good all the way around. And I don't have a bass amp here, so I was trying this out through a guitar amp. So what I ended up doing was putting it through a clean channel of a tube amp and just cranking it and going through all the switches. And it's kind of weird. It really is. But let's give this a polish with the ball polish, and then we'll put her back in its case and get it ready to go to Pristine Auctions. And we go with the ball polish, and we definitely want some on this headstock because it is dusty and dirty. The ball polish is best instrument polish you can get for the money. I've used dirty ball strings my whole life. I know some guys will say that the only thing that ball makes good is polish. Seth Howard isn't one of those guys, but I really want to condition this neck too, and I this fingerboard. I want to put some Howard's Feeding Wax in it, but I am not taking these strings off. They've been there. They've been there since '93. And the bass is not really dusty. I mean, this has been sitting in a case, so it's not really dusty. There's some dust on this peg head. I'm just gonna get it off. I sprayed it with the ball polish, and as I showed you in the flyover, there's 4 holes in the peg head up here, where the strings get strung through backwards and come through to here. And these are regular guitar tuners set into the body. The body is shaved down here, and it's peg head depth. So these are regular guitar tuners with imperial heads. Same as you would find on the 10-string bitch guitars that Dave Mustaine was famous for using. The figure on this is amazing. There's little rubber feet at the bottom of these points for when you set it down. Like, they thought of everything back in the 70s. And look at the condition of this guitar. It's just phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. I'm going to try to squeeze in some Howard Feeding Wax without taking these strings off, just to condition that fretboard a little bit. Let's get some on the clean rag, and come on, squeeze out. You've heard me complain. The nozzles on the Howard's Feeding Wax are the worst part about them. They're a great product, but the nozzles suck. Come on, guys. Get a better nozzle. Oh, look at that. Look at that. That fingerboard is just soaking in that wax. These strings are so dead, I'm not worried about getting them dirty with the wax. We'll hit it with some ball polish on top once we get the wax in there impregnated into this board. Look at how dark that board come. Just a little Howard's on a rag. That really did it up. Let's put a little more ball polish on this. And we'll get the excess wax off the where I spilled it on the body a little bit. And we'll rub it across them strings. Ball polish on the strings. There we go. So there we are, folks. This is our 1978 BC Rich Bitch 8-string bass. Absolute vintage goodness. This is vintage guitar porn right here, and you can't get more original than this. And I'll tell you that this thing is so amazing. And I am very honored that Steve asked me to help him move this along, to help with his financial issues. And this will definitely generate a lot of money. And this thing is amazing. I want you to like, comment, and subscribe. Please subscribe to the channel. The more subscribers I get, the more we're going to be on our way to getting paid by YouTube for making videos. And some of you are really enjoying my videos, so I really like this. And I am so glad that you do enjoy my videos. And I hope you keep coming back. And, you know, hey, you don't like something that I do, go ahead, roast me in the comments. I don't care. We will take your advice or not take your advice. I know there's a lot more skilled luthiers than I am out there. I'm pretty good at what I do. I'm not definitely not the best in the world, but I've trained under some of the best in the world, and I take advice from some of the best in the world, and like Paul Richards and Seth Howard and Tom Hawk, and you guys are amazing, and I love looking at your stuff, and I take a lot of your techniques, and I try to use them, and you know, my locally here, my biggest benefactor in luthier skills is probably Jack Gretz, owner of Northeast Music Center. Another one was early in my days when I was a teenager, and coming up in my 20s was George Albrecht, and George was a really famous luthier around here for years and years. And then after that, I trained with I started working with Carl Kaminsky in the machine shop I worked at, and then I would go at night to his shop, and that man taught me a lot. And I don't know. I'm a great sponge. I like learning from people. The first thing you realize when you're learning about fretwork, and I learned from some of the masters from fretwork. The first thing you realize is you think you know everything, but then you go see one of these guys and you realize that you don't know shit. You really don't. So I've learned I would love to dig into this, but I'm not going to. I'm not. I would love to level and crown and polish these frets. They don't seem to be needing too much of a level. They definitely need a polish. They're green. They're absolutely green. Um, but I'm not, for sake of originality, I'm not going to do it. Um, I would even just run the fret erasers across these just to get some of the green off. But I can't. There's something about preserving this originality. Uh, would I like to go through all those electronics and resolder shit and make sure everything's working perfectly? Still, there's some little cricks and crinkles in here yet, but it is working. Um, you heard that jack. That jack was definitely something that needed to be conditioned. Uh, and a little deoxit goes a long way. And that's much better. And these things have been sitting for decades. For 2 decades, 3 decades, almost. So they needed to be cleaned, and I did that. And like I said, just thank God that Steve had the presence of mind to take the batteries out before he put it away, because this would have been a nightmare if those batteries had been in there and corroded and destroyed all those electronics. So the batteries being out was great. So um, I'm gonna have to get a couple more batteries because I don't have any spare batteries now. I just used both of them in this guitar, but it is amazing. And like I said, like, subscribe, comment, and hopefully you come back to the channel and see some more stuff. I'm gonna have a lot more guitars coming in from Chris today, and I will have. Well, I don't even want to know. Here, I'm just messing with my YouTube. I have a lot more stuff coming in from Chris today. We were talking about a 71 ES335. We were talking about this handmade bass that's got to come in and get a fret dress, probably. But this is all. I love showing guitars to you guys, especially stuff like this that you're not going to see every day. And this is just one example of something that was made the craftsmanship back in the day. There were no CNC machines. There were no, you know, electronic pin routers and all this stuff. This stuff was all done with a hand router, a hand plane, Titebond glue, hand sanding. This is amazing. I'm so glad I was able to bring you this guitar today. Like, subscribe, comment, and we will see you next week on One Legged Luthier on YouTube. Thank you guys. Fat Cat says hi.